This video will show you how to take your U.S. Census at School random sample and import it into TinkerPlots. There are a couple ways that you can do this. First is while you have TinkerPlots open, go to File and Import from File. Then find where you have your Census at School sample CSV file that you downloaded. It may still be in your Downloads folder, or if you've saved it to your desktop and renamed it as something else, you can find it there. Note that as soon as I select the file, it automatically imports all 100 data points into TinkerPlots. You can verify that by looking at the number of cases you have at the top. Here it's telling me I have case 100 of 100. I can scroll through my cases by selecting the arrows at the top. This is called a set of data cards in TinkerPlots. And so essentially the same concept as if we had all of the data for each individual recorded on a set of index cards and had them all stacked together. But it's just listed virtually here for us. So for any given individual, I can see what responses were entered for each of the different attributes or categories from the questionnaire. You may want to examine your data in a table. To do so, simply drag down a table from the menu bar, and you might have to drag it to make it a little larger so you can see all of the data. As you scroll through your data, keep your eyes open for blocks that are shaded, this kind of tan color. That means that there was no data entered for that particular attribute for that particular individual. In some cases, the data may be missing for quite a few attributes. Here's one where the data has not been entered for well over half of the survey. When you start making graphical displays, you'll notice some of these missing values are noted as well. To make a graphical display, you can drag down a plot. Note that when I drag down a plot, the dot that is red corresponds to case 42 in this case out of 100. That means that this is the data for that particular point within my data set. If I select another point, it takes me to the data card for that particular data value. So you can see that the data is not organized in any particular fashion here. However, let's say I wanted to see how many people in my data set are female. I can take and drag over gender to either axis, and then it will separate it into male and female. I can stack it if I want to see all the individual data points, and I can also show the number of males and females. So in this case, I have 58 females and 42 males. If I want to see it as a percentage, I have that option as well. Looking at other categorical attributes will yield similar results. I can also look at quantitative attributes. So if I drag down another plot, and this time I want to drag down a quantitative attribute. So let's look at the hours of sleep on a given school night. In this case, you will see that I have quite a few data points over here with an asterisk. These data points are the ones that don't have any data entered for that particular attribute. So if I click on one of them, I will see that sleep hours for school night is blank. If I click on one over here, I will see that sleep hours on a school night has an actual number. And this particular one has a really odd number, so I may want to hide that one or throw it out. So for our purposes right now, let's right click on it, and we're going to hide the selected case. That one was probably entered incorrectly. Once I hide that case, now I see I have a range that's a little closer to what I expect. I'm going from 0 to 10 hours of sleep. So you can drag these data points. If you drag as far to the right as possible, it's going to fully separate your data. You can even stack it down along the x-axis so that you can see exactly how many data points you have at a particular hour of sleep. Recall when we selected to hide that one particular case whose value was 9999, it was dark green. That corresponds to this gradient over here for sleep hours on a school night. It shows me that when I have fewer sleep hours, I should be closer to the left-hand or lighter side of the scale. When I have more sleep hours, I should be closer to the right-hand or darker side of the scale. Now keep in mind that we didn't delete that case, we simply hid it. So in comparison to 9,999, these values here would be very close to the light end of the spectrum, which is why they're all currently white. But I know that point is still in there because in my male and female data plot up above, I can see that green value still there. Note that if I have a categorical variable, it's going to also correspond when I select it over on the data card to whatever graphical displays that I have. But for right now, I want to be able to see the actual gradient for the numbers of sleep hours on a school night. So in that case, what I want to do is I actually want to get rid of this particular data value. And to do that, I'm actually going to have to select it up here in my male and female because I actually hid it down here from this one. For this one, I just want to go ahead and throw it out altogether because it seems like the majority of the answers were not reported accurately. Once I have that case selected in my data cards, if I right click up where it says case 91, I can hit cut case. And as soon as I do that, it's going to cut that case out completely. My number of my sample is going to go from 100 to 99 because I actually took that case out. Now I can see the actual gradient going from lighter shades of green to darker shades of green for the sleep hours on a school night. And the same is going to be true for any quantitative variable that you have. So that's a brief overview of how to import a CSV file into TinkerPlots and to get started at looking at some graphical displays of your data. Now, let's say that your data does not import correctly from a file. For whatever reason, there are cases where data does not import correctly and it looks really funny when you get it in TinkerPlots, which is why it's so important to examine your data through the data cards and maybe even a data table once you have imported it from a file. But let's say that you just want to copy and paste it from Excel into TinkerPlots. To do that, first make sure your data is up and in Excel. Then click on this upper left-hand corner to select the entire spreadsheet of your data. Next, go to Edit, Copy, switch back over to TinkerPlots. Just going to do a new file for right now. Drag down some data cards, and then you should be able to go to Edit, Paste Cases. Again, you want to make sure that your cases look like they're pasted correctly and that you don't have your attributes in for values or vice versa. From here, you can proceed to creating plots like we did in the previous section.